So today on the show, we have Phil Byers from Byers Home Team at Compass. By the way, Phil is a legend in the Chicago market. So we're super excited to have him. And actually, if somebody else should be hosting this podcast, it's probably him. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Phil. If you're from the Chicago market, you probably already know him, but our listeners, of course, are everywhere. So for everyone who doesn't yet know Phil, let me tell you a little bit about him. Phil Byers recently joined Compass as a 17-year veteran of real estate in Chicago's North Side neighborhoods. Formerly in consulting, Phil started Byers Home Team with a mission of providing next-level expertise and service to his clients. His favorite part of the business is advising his clients so they make well-informed and clear decisions about their home and financial future. Phil has also served as a productivity coach, I could use him, and has a true passion for helping the people of the real estate industry succeed. He was also named a 2019 Chicago Association of Realtors top 1% producer, and we are thrilled to have him. By the way, find Phil and his team at buyershometeam.com. Welcome, Phil, to the show.
Thanks, CJ. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We are excited to have you. I was telling Phil just before we started that we haven't met in person, but I feel like I know him because he moderates a lot of events and panels all over Chicago and probably elsewhere. And he is 1,000 times better at, in fact, Phil, funny story before we get started. I was just moderating a panel for the YPN for Chicago Association of Realtors.
Oh, great.
And I was like, I hadn't done that ever before. And I said, I'm going to take the times I've seen Phil speak, and basically I did a version of you for about an hour.
I love it.
We haven't met in person, but I was impersonating you just about a month ago. So,
well, I always say when I'm moderating panels or doing that stuff that I'm pretending to be in show business.
You are so good at it. You have your note cards. Phil is super professional. I am not. So I need to learn from you and do better.
My friend Joe Zimmerman did a big panel in a room of like 800 people about a month ago. And he called me a couple of weeks, and I loved getting this call. And he was like, Phil, I need the tips on moderating this panel. And so I, coached him up a little bit to get ready for the room.
I love it.
Like the Tonight Show, if you can. It's me pretending,
Well, let's talk about you. I would love to know, since you've been in real estate for a long time, but you came from a different background. I would love to hear that story. Can you tell us a little bit about why you got into real estate and how you got in?
Yeah. I grew up in a family where my dad worked for the same company for 35 years. And which is great. Today's his birthday, actually, which is
wow. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday. 77 years old to my dad.
Oh my gosh.
He won't stop grocery shopping either in this coronavirus thing. It's driving my brother and I nuts. Anyway, I just sort of had it in my bones to be at a big company and to sort of like climb a corporate ladder. And I was doing that for a while, and I just kept kind of bumping into hating it and just really feeling trapped. Real estate interested me. I didn't own anything at the time. But my now wife and my girlfriend, and soon after this, my fiance at the time, we looked for a home and we bought it together. And I think the process was just confusing and overwhelming. And I was so interested in real estate that I thought, I think I can do this better. So yeah. I got to leave that 9-to-5, commute to the suburbs and sit at a desk job and get to do this carnival job that we do. But I really wanted to just serve people. That's my first impressions of the business, is that I just get to really take a process that can be confusing and overwhelming and just help them get through it easier and set expectations better.
Yeah, I would say that that's a very a big reason why people get in, this idea of serving. That is certainly something that comes through in your personality when I've seen you speak. I think that's something that is definitely you. And can you tell us, so we have a lot of listeners who are either newer to the business, and right now, obviously, everything's upside down and difficult. But even in more normal times, when we're not stuck at home, a lot of the listeners are always looking for tips and advice. And do you mind sharing sort of how you got started and what did you do 17 years ago?
Yeah.
What helped you build your business? And
the thing I always remember is there was an agent in my first office, and this is a little bit of background on sort of where I was at the time. So I come into sales. I'd never sold anything before. I quit my job. I'm in this new office. I don't know anybody. And I don't think of it today as being scary, but at the time, I'm sure I was scared, right? I mean, I don't make a living anymore. I don't have that income coming in, benefits, all that stuff. And there was a woman that used to walk around my office going, it's just a numbers game. It's just a numbers game. And I always make this joke, although it's not really a joke. I didn't really understand what she meant.
Right.
I remember her telling me, just go to Starbucks in the morning, and when you're waiting in line for your coffee, hand out your business card to all the strangers in Starbucks. And my first reaction was, I'm doomed, because there's no way that I'm doing that. I'm too shy, right? I'm too nervous. But I read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which is Gary Keller's book. In it, there was this thing called a 33 touch, and it was a math formula. Yeah. And I really attached to it. And it said, if you meet people and you put them into this machine and you touch them a certain number of times per year and you have a plan. So it's thought out, it's businessy, right? It's, you know, you have a marketing plan and you have a touch plan and you seek to stay in contact with this group of people. It also taught you to not judge the relationship. So if you meet somebody, let's say at an open house, which is where I cut my teeth. I used to sit open houses all the time because I had been taught reading this plan, like meet people, put them into your thing being your marketing plan, make sure that you're touching them 33 times a year. 4 of those touches were personal, and my business just grew and grew and grew and grew. And it was just on the backs of, hey, I met you. Do you need anything? Hey, I met you. Here's a thing that you might need. And then people would eventually call you. And then that's what my career has been for 17 years. I say now, I really just have a Rolodex business where my clients are just kind of a natural churn all the time. But it was do open houses and meet people is all I was obsessed with for the first 5 years of my career. That's all I did, was just obsessively go to open houses, go to networking events, meet people that could potentially be buyers and sellers, and then stay in touch with them. Even if they didn't give me any vibe that they necessarily wanted to stay in touch with me, I still stayed in touch with them. And then a lot of those people became my clients, and then when you do the good work on top of that, you know, you do the fun part, which is actually work with them, then they refer you and come back to you and all that stuff, which is really great. And that's how I started. It was just go out, meet, do open houses, and build your database. I'm obsessive about names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses. So that was the seed that started my business.
And now is such a great time while we're, you know, a lot of us are working from home, the vast majority of the country, to really go back through your CRM or just your database of your contact list, your sphere of influence, and make sure you have all of that information filled out. You should know your clients' birthdays, their anniversaries, where they work, all of those things, so that you can have a reason to reach out to them and you have things to say. You could call them on their anniversary. It's your father's birthday today. It's my parents' anniversary. And I'm curious on, my parents have lots of service providers in their life, financial planners, insurance, attorneys, whatever, doctors, et cetera. And realtors as well. And I'm wondering how many calls they're getting today from other people who know it's their anniversary, aside from friends and family. And I bet it's 0.
Yeah.
And so what a great opportunity right now for us to fill in those holes in our database.
Yeah. And people, it's a weird thing, because one of the things that interests me, as I always try to refer to myself as a citizen of the industry. Like I really like being, and you know, you mentioned at the top about doing, you know, the panels and the speaking engagements and stuff. I really, really love the people of our industry. And I always say that you don't even have to be that best friendy with everyone. What they really want you to be is an expert, and they want you to be a really solid agent, and they want you to be able to answer their questions. I mean, the number one question that people have, you know, today when I get from clients is, what the heck are you guys doing?
Yeah.
You know, can you show a thing? And sometimes people just want to connect with you. And there were years where I felt like I do a deal, going back to that point of like really liking to be a citizen of the industry and talking to people over the years. When I say this, people attach to this. I go, for years, I thought everybody hated me at the end of a transaction. And I've been proven wrong literally almost 100% of the time. Then, you know, they call me 3 years later, but it's like you have this big relationship and you're with them. And so that self-doubt that you have can really mess with you. And so sometimes if you feel uncomfortable calling a client and saying, hey, happy anniversary, because you don't have that kind of relationship, call them up and say, or don't even call them, send them a note and go, hey, just checking in with you, DJ. Thought you might want to understand some metrics here. Showings are down 55% in the last 3 weeks. And the number of contracts are down about the same, and the number of listings are down about the same. So roughly half the market's disappeared, in case you're wondering. And gee whiz, if you have any questions just about the market in general or your home, just call me. People love that.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily even need to be your best friend. I'm not one to like bring a pie at Christmas and weep over the birth of a new child, but I am the person that's there, they know the relationship they have with me, and they like it, and I like it too. I want to be there for them, and that touch doesn't even have to be so gooey if you don't want it to be. It can just be,
No,
it's me checking in.
you're so absolutely right. And it doesn't have to be as personalized, but it does. I think you either have to go the GUI route or you have to go the expert route. And ideally, you have a combination of both.
Yeah.
So you have great relationships, but really at the end of the day, that knowledge is probably wins and trumps everything because right now I have a friend who's a financial advisor. He is, of course, just the last couple of months it has been, it's been crazy. And obviously every day is crazy now with the market. And I said, what are you telling your clients? I'm not one of his clients. And he just immediately rattled off about 10 things. And I was like, that was a great answer because he immediately had that answer. So I think what you just said is so important is have an answer, do your research, know what's going on, and know statistics like, by the way, showings are down, cancellations and temps are up, and being able to have an intelligent conversation. You don't have to know everything, but you certainly have to know more than your clients.
You got it. You got it. And sometimes the best answer is, I don't know the answer.
It's yes.
And I don't mean like, I'll find out for you. I mean, when I coached 40 people for a year. I have a lot of colleagues. I have a real passion for young agents. And it was funny, like day 3 of the lockdown, I'm getting phone calls from my colleagues, and I would start answering the phone going, hey, I've also never been through this. So I know you're calling me to ask me what to do, but I don't know, because we just don't know. And when clients are going, hey, what do we do with this? I go, well, you're building, let us do showings. If so, we can do this or that. And if you live there, we can do this or that. But it's a challenging time. But yeah, I agree. Or I think that summary is really good. Knowing an answer and being able to tell your clients something is so important. That's what they want you for. That's what they want you for.
Yeah, and that's also your job, right? And not your job. I'm not referencing you, but I'm saying it's a real estate professional's job is to have answers, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to know everything. And again, the I don't know answer is perfectly acceptable. And then if it needs to be followed up with, let me do some research and get back to you, which is a perfectly acceptable answer, especially if you're new, or let me check with my team and get back to you. But yeah, there's authenticity, transparency, and especially right now, everything is so different. To be able to say, really don't know exactly what the future holds, but here's what we can do today, or here are some options or ideas, and let's work together to figure it out. I think I think that's a really good answer. I want to also say something about you specifically, that you talked about being a citizen of the industry. I also have seen the way how enamored you are with other real estate professionals that you admire. And I've seen you do this in moderation. It's not an act, but when you're talking to your guests, or the people that are sharing their secrets or their success strategies, you are as interested as the most interested person in that audience. You are that person. And I wonder how much of that has helped you even in your business over the years. You seem like somebody that's always been interested in other agents and how they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes joke that I miss my calling. I mean, you joked at the top too, that maybe I should host a podcast. I mean, I would love it. It's so much more interesting to me to be curious about people. The other reason I think that you see that come through is because I think our industry doesn't tell the story of what it's like very well. The story gets told in whatever movies or reality shows or whatever. I mean, I was just watching Ryan Serhant, watching a bunch of his videos, and really loving that I understood him. And I didn't know much about Ryan Serhant, and really liked the stuff that he's doing, but it spoke to me as an agent. I think from a consumer standpoint, it's a little tougher. And so when I'm doing those events, or I'm getting to interview Jenny Ames, or the completely insane Frank Montreux, or whomever it is, I just want to know what they're about and what makes them tick. Because I've been through it. Anybody that makes it is going to cry and crumble to the ground at some point from the pressure and stress, ideally in the early part of their career. And I always say, I can smell if you've done that yet. You know what I mean? And if you're talking to Melanie Stone, she has. If you're talking to Jenny Ames, she has. Yeah. And then I just want to hear about you and what it's like for you. And I've in some of those interviews gotten answers that took my breath away. Yeah. In how honest and real they were. Not even about the what are your best tips for open houses? Right. But this is how I feel sometimes, because this business is hard. I like the opportunity for us to tell that story to each other, because it makes us feel a little bit more connected. Because the rest of the time we're mostly running around going, hey, look at how great I am, and look at how many houses I sold. And, you know, we all look at each other with tears in our eyes sometimes and go, I can't do this another day, you know? And that's what interests me is that part of the connection, leave the consumers and the real estate sales, but what makes Matt Larissy tick, or what makes Frank Montreux tick, or, you know, Jenny Ames, or whomever it is. I do love that process. And I don't know, it interests me, and it helps me connect to the people of this business, and it makes me like it more too.
Yeah, I agree. And those agents who are often featured on these types of panels have such interesting stories, and there's a lot of commonality in their discipline, the fundamentals they use to build their business. There tends to be a lot of that is the same, but you know, when you mentioned Frank Montreux, who's another Chicago legend, South Side Chicago guy, and you know, you had asked him at this panel about you'd asked everyone on the panel what their morning routine was, and he had the most interesting morning routine, and it was very surprising because he's kind of a gruff, you know, sort of type of guy. And he said, oh no, this is what I do for the first hour of the day. And it was all about, you know, taking care of himself. And I thought, oh my God, what a great, you know, I love hearing stuff like that and you're able to bring that out of people. I'm curious to know what you are telling people on your team right now to stay busy. How are you staying busy and productive during the turbulent times that we're in?
Yeah. A few months ago, I made a transition to Compass, and which is really fun and exciting. But I admit that, you know, after 15 years with a different company, I rested for a little too long. So what I'm doing, and then I'll answer the part about what I'm telling people to do. What I'm doing is catching up. I'm using it as an opportunity to get to all those things that I haven't been getting to. I'm typically in touch with my clients pretty regularly, and we're continuing that. People on my team, it's keep doing what we do every day, which is connect with our clients. The way that we're connecting might be a little bit different. What we're talking about might be a little different. I have a philosophy that we can go and share information with our clients even if they didn't ask for it. So, I mean, 2.5 weeks ago, I wrote a big email to my clients about, you know, how this is affecting us thus far, just so that something could get in front of them and so that they could start hearing us talk about it and know that we're connected in reality. But the answer, whenever anybody asks me how to build their business or what we're doing now, or your question, which is what are you telling your team or what are you telling people to do now, is what you should always be doing, which is be in relationship with your clients, be asking them what they need. To my clients, the big advice that I've given is if you've started, and this is a little bit of lead generation, right? But if you started thinking about selling this year, what an amazing opportunity for us to do all of that homework that we hate doing. Everyone gets really excited about putting their place on the market, doing showings, getting offers. Sure. But the part about like, okay, send me condo docs. Okay, send me all this information. Get me this. We got to get the photo scheduled. That's the part that people hate. And right now, it's a little more doable because you have more time. And so I'm trying to line up for D-Day, basically. At some point, a switch is going to flip and we're all going to be back at it, running around like crazy people. And I'm putting listings in the chamber, ready to go. I talked to a client today where the only thing holding us up is that the building won't let anybody in to do anything. A lot of older people live there. It's 990 Lakeshore Drive. And nobody, they won't let anybody in there. They won't let cleaning people in. They won't let photographers in. So I talked to my client today, but she just appreciated hearing from me and having me push just to go, hey, can we get in there? And don't get me wrong, I'm not being dangerous. In fact, we're trying to let people in without even me going. Hey, can they meet, get the keys to the desk or whatever? We're not being irresponsible, but hey, it's a vacant unit. If I can get a cleaning crew in there, can I? And we can't in this case, but my client really appreciated me thinking about it and continuing to push. And that's what we're doing. It's just staying in front of everybody and moving the ball where we can move it, keeping our closings going. You know, there's been deals I'm sure you've heard that have fallen apart during this time where buyers have gotten spooked. The stock market, it spooks everybody for good reason. I mean, I'm not even arguing that they shouldn't be spooked, but trying to focus on all the things that we can do, which is kind of how I run life anyway. I don't really get stressed out. I just go, okay, the world's burning. Where's the path out of the woods? You know what I mean? Or how can I get some rest for a day? Or how can I throw some water on this fire that's right next to me for a minute so I can clear my head to get to the next thing? That's just try to stay focused and do more and be in front of your clients.
Yeah, I think that's right, and this is a great time to go back to those fundamentals and to maybe cultivate the habits that you didn't have time to do when you are running around working, insane hours because everything is normal. And
Yeah.
now it's opportunity. Like for me, when I was thinking back to that conversation that you had with Frank Mantra, where he was mentioning his morning routine, and I was thinking, I was like, I got to incorporate that sort of thing into my life, and I hadn't. And now it's like, okay, I actually have time to put that into place, and that's going to reap dividends as well. Same thing with deepening relationships with clients. If there are people that you've worked, not you, Phil, but anyone listening who has worked with in the past, and maybe you've lost touch, what a great opportunity to reach out, just check in, see how they're doing. Maybe give them ask them. You can always ask them if they have any real estate needs as well. But even just the reach out and saying, hey, I sort of lost touch. I apologize for that, but I wanted to reconnect and just see how you and your family were doing, or hey, I have this idea for you, or hey, by the way, it might be a great time to refinance because of course of the rates being so low. And if you don't want to go the touchy feely route, that's a great value add. Say, hey, if you don't have a great lender, I've got one for you, if that sort of thing. So lots of great opportunities to stay connected, I think, which is, as you said, kind of the name of the game.
Totally. Yeah. You said, it's a good time to get back to fundamentals. And I've said for years, the best thing to do is just get good at fundamentals.
Yeah, that's
You know what
all
I
you
mean?
have
That's
to do.
the whole business. I say this a lot, is just dribbling and passing. Forget shooting. You can
Right.
make a ridiculous living just knowing how to dribble and pass really well. And dribbling and passing to me is staying connected to the people that you've met, bring them value, do good work, stay in touch with them. I mean, the number of times, it's funny, I filled out a thing for you for funny story. One of my favorite stories in the business is different than the one that I gave you, but
Share it, Phil.
it's years ago. So it's probably, it was probably 2010-ish. I don't remember what year the Olympics were supposed to be in Chicago 2016. Remember when Chicago had the bid for the Olympics? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting at this networking Christmas party at this woman's house. And for some reason, this woman, she was a patent attorney. She just didn't like me. I was in a networking group, kind of like a B&A group. If you know what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
And she had hosted this Christmas party for all the people of the thing. And I'm not a very social person, so I don't want to be there, but I'm a professional, so I'm there. And our wives and spouses are all there. And so we're sitting there talking, and I end up engaging her and saying, oh, your house is so beautiful. And it was in River North. She had a big townhouse. And I said, oh, I'm curious to know when you got it or who your agent was. And she was kind of like, talk to the hand, like, oh, we already have an agent. And I was like, all right, I'm not trying to pitch anything. Right. I just want to know. So she's going on and on about how great her agent is. And she's clearly uncomfortable with me just having any conversation with her because I happen to be a real estate agent. And she says, our agent's really great. Our agent's really great. We actually just bought some new property on the South Side because the Olympics are definitely coming to Chicago in 2016, which as we all know, remember the Olympics when they were here? So great. So fun. Yeah. It went great. So she had gone down and bought some stuff. And I said, oh, I asked her who her agent was because I want to know if I know them. Right. And finally, after pressing her, and after she'd been raving about her agent, she goes, I don't remember their name. And that day was such a huge aha for me. And when you look at the statistics of our business, NAR does this great report every year, the profile of home buyers and sellers.
It's awesome.
What they find is 74% of people never hear from their agent again.
Isn't that remarkable?
And that's the dribbling and passing thing, right? Like forget shooting. Like you can dish it to be just dribble down the court and you're going to make an insane living. Just keep in touch with people, offer yourself to be available. She couldn't remember the name of this agent that she raved about. And that's not the first time in my career, but I just always remember that as a reminder. That's why I keep in touch. That's why we as agents should keep in touch, because literally people forget our names.
Well, yeah. And it's probably, a lot of it's just, and there's no judgment to this, but I think all of us think we're just a little bit more important than we really are. And that's not because we have inflated egos.
Don't do that. How dare you?
But, well, I've always said as a joke to what Phil just said, I've always said, if you're just posting on Facebook, just listed and just sold, nobody cares. Nobody cares. The person who you just sold the home to or sold the home from cares. Other than that, nobody needs to see you pat yourself on the back. But the point is that we all think, well, I sold, in your case, in this story, I sold this person a beautiful River North townhome, which was probably not inexpensive. And then I also sold them a property on the South Side for
maybe multiple properties. Yeah.
Well, maybe. And of course they're going to remember me. They love me. I'm great. And here's an example of them not remembering. Yeah.
So great. And such, it shows up in the numbers.
Yeah.
NAR does a great study every year. It says most people are going to forget about you. Most people aren't going to keep in touch. And to me, that's the whole opportunity of the business. And the coolest part about it is that if you just stay in touch with people authentically, you get to mostly be yourself. Like, I don't have to pretend to be anything else. I'm Phil.
Right.
This is how I always say to my clients, the way I'm talking to you right now, unfortunately, it's the same way I talk to my wife. Like, I have the same cadence, right? Like, there is no different speed or different version. And I think if you can systemize it, I love that you mentioned Frank Montro's morning routine, right? Like, if you can systemize even just a portion of your day,
Right.
and I don't even care what portion of the day it is, but if you can just get really on purpose about a couple things, you don't even have to be that, again, you don't have to be good at shooting. You just have to dribble and pass.
Yeah, it's
That's
funny
it.
that it's. I think was it Scott Peck or somebody wrote "It's never crowded along the extra mile." Somebody wrote that, but it's not even the extra mile. It's not even crowded mostly along the highway. If you're just actually doing the fundamentals, you're
Yep.
far ahead of most. Sadly and unfortunately, but the good news is you don't have to necessarily be the very best. You just have to
Yeah.
do really great customer service, and if you're that extends before the sale and well after the sale. And if
Especially after the sale, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
These people are not checks, they're relationships. And part of the joy of the business is having trees of friends that have bought and referred to me and had kids and then had other kids and then bought bigger homes and bigger homes and bigger homes. I mean, I know some people that for 15 years, and I've helped them buy and sell 3 homes, and I've watched them go from dating to married with 3 kids.
yeah.
And the part about doing the business isn't that fun after a long time. I mean, you don't hate it, but it's just what you do. But the part about knowing those people and knowing about their lives and them honoring you and wanting you to be part of their life is great. And it makes it worth it. Because the rest of the time we're just pushing papers,
Right.
The human part, if we're not making it human or humanistic, it's just, like I say, then we're just brokers.
And it is remarkable that NAR statistic you mentioned about most clients don't hear from their realtor after or forget their realtor's name. It's a very sad thing, but it's also what an amazing opportunity for anyone who's new to the business to understand that just doing that, staying in touch, is a good chunk of the way to success.
Honestly,
Yeah, it's and and
it's crazy.
as Phil said at the beginning, look, whether you're look, if you work at a firm, and Phil said he cut his teeth on open houses, which we've interviewed almost 150 top 1% producers for the show so far. And basically every single one of them started out doing open houses. And so for everyone listening, and I just want to quickly get back to that because it was such an important thing, and we sort of moved past it, but I want to go back because this is really important. So if you are, a lot of people might say, well, I don't have any listings. Well, what a great opportunity to develop relationships with other real estate professionals in your office and just beg them, ask them, can I please do an open house for you?
Oh my God. Yep.
Yep. And if you don't have that, then then go to Starbucks, like Phil was told, and just start handing out your card. Meet as many people as you can. Do it in an authentic way. Be yourself, and add people to your database. But yeah, open houses are right now. Obviously, a lot of places aren't able to do that. Here, of course, and most states, but once we get past that, beg people. I've even had top producers on my show that have said, top 1% producers who say, if somebody in my office asks me to do an open house, I turn them down 2 or 3 times, and I wanted to see if they keep coming back.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. One of the things, if I could talk about that open house thing
please.
for a minute, and what I did, I've given this suggestion to agents. There's an agent who's still active in our market. Her name's Nancy Finley. She was sort of my first mentor when I was at my first office. And I remember that there was a listing at the New York building, 3660 Lakeshore, that she had on the 25th floor. It had a great view. It was a 1-bedroom. There's no big deal. And I basically just adopted it. I mean, I said to her, she wanted to do, this is a while back. So, she wanted to do open houses literally every single weekend.
Yeah.
And I said, I will do an open house here every single weekend for you.
Wow.
And what I would say to her, and I've said this to new agents, like, oh, don't just call up somebody and say, can you do an open house? What I remember saying to Nancy is, the only thing you have to do is leave keys in my mailbox on Sunday morning. I will handle everything else. I'll bring a sign. I'm not going to ask you all the inane questions about how many units are in the building or, I can find all that stuff out on my own. I'm going to make this. So 2 things would happen. One, she was thrilled because there was an open house happening every
Yeah,
weekend.
you were earning your keep.
Right.
Yeah.
She didn't have to do it.
Right.
I would leave a note for her clients at the end of every open house. Hey, we had, 14 groups through today. Contact Nancy if you have any questions. I obviously wouldn't get in front of her client, but I met so many people. Doing the same open house every weekend was great, because then I was able to go, here's everything on the market in the building. Here's everything on the market in the nearby buildings. So I started to develop sort of those first shreds of expertise.
Yeah.
And the other thing I say to agents a lot, is if nothing else, let's say nobody comes or very few people come, or you don't, add too many people to your database, or they're all represented, you at least get to start understanding the rhythm and the language of the business.
Yeah.
Open house is so important for that. Listening to consumers that are scared, walk in the door and start asking the questions that they're going to ask. You start to learn, oh, this is what people are taught to ask, or this is what people are concerned about, or this is what people wonder. And then you start to develop that way too. You know what I mean? And it's not just go to an open house and meet some buyers. It's go to an open house, meet a bunch of people you can add to your database, run your marketing machine that gets in front of those people all the time, but also learn the language of the business. To your point, I love develop the relationships with the other agents in your industry. Nancy Finley loved me. I remember she needed to co-list something back then. And the first time my name was on a listing was because she was like, look, I'll put you on as a co-lister. Can you handle all the showings and I'll give you 40%. And I was like, great.
Yeah.
Just because I did good work for her. But it's the one other thing I'll say, DJ, before I go on, is the other tip I would give to agents that are looking for open houses is don't go up to an agent necessarily and say, can I have an open house? Go to your office's listings.
Yes.
And go to the ones that have been on the market 3 weeks that are in really good spots that you know are going to have good traffic, or that you would like to stand in and tell all your clients about, and go to an agent and ask specifically, hey, I noticed you haven't done an open house in a couple of weeks. This thing's been around. I'd love to host an open house on this specific property for you. And by the way, if your clients want it, I'll do it every single weekend. And now you pick what open house you want, instead of just going up to an agent and saying, can I have an open house, please? Because we all know as agents, what happens is they go, cool. There's a 1-bedroom condo out in who knows where in this really crappy apartment building that I can't sell. You can do an open house there all day long. And that might not be what you want, but you take it because they said you can have this one. Instead, maybe you go and ask them for some specific ones.
Yeah, it's funny. I had very early on when I started doing this podcast, just to piggyback on the stories, as I'm not a producing realtor myself, I have to steal the stories of others that I've interviewed. But I had Nico Apostle, who of course you know, and he was on, and he, when he got his license, he was, I think in his early 20s. He said, none of my friends were buying or selling homes. Rentals, working with agents at that time wasn't as popular. So he said he really had nothing going on. So he would beg people for open houses in Lincoln Park, which is where he's from, and obviously where his family's from. And when he talked about, I said, well, how did you get people to come to open houses when you were 23 or whatever age he started? And he said, this is one of the smartest things I'd ever heard. So for anyone listening, I'm just going to repeat this tip in case, if you want to go back and listen, that's years ago I did this interview, but it's a great one. But he said he would show up an hour early. And now this won't work in a high rise, of course, but for single family homes or 3 flats, like, he would knock on the doors of all the neighbors and he would say, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I'm doing an open house down the street. If you want to come check it out, here's my card, just come on by. And I said, well, that's interesting. I said, did people ever come? He goes, people came all the time.
Oh,
because every neighbor is nosy and they want to see what's going on inside that unit. And I thought, that's one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Simple, but it works. So yeah, as Phil was saying, call your clients, call your buyers, let them know about these open houses, or get creative and somehow get people to show up. Because yeah, as Phil was saying, you get to learn the rhythm of the buyer thought process, the language, the questions. You just get used to talking about real estate in a social and informative way. And also hopefully get some leads out of it, or at least adding people to your database. So
yeah. And if you're scared, like if you're new and you're scared, there's no risk.
Yeah.
You can flub your line. You can be scared. You cannot answer the question the right way, and it's all good.
That's a very good point. I want you to share your other funny story about the balcony and getting stuck, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, this is a perfect for what we've talked about too. So I was doing this open house. This is one of my first memories. I don't even think I was a full-time agent yet. I had asked for an open house. I might have actually been a Nancy Finley open house too, and it was on Damon. And so I'm doing this open house. It was a windy day. It was in the fall. And I'm out on this back deck, and this is a building that it was like a 4th floor walk up, and there was no staircase down from the balcony. It was all interior. And so we go out there, I take these people out and we're looking around, and the door from the wind slams shut from the master bedroom and it locks. And so now we're out on this balcony, myself and two strangers are out on this balcony, and I have no way to get us out of there or down. The keys were inside, I think, on the counter, or they were in my hand.
Of course, yeah.
And the best part about this story is, you know, they had signed in. So 15 minutes later, a neighbor, thank God I'd left the unit door open. Somebody in the building was coming up, and I had yelled down. The guy came up, opened the door, came in the unit, let us in. And so we got in, had a laugh, they left. And I put them in my database, of course. I sent them and I do this with open houses even now.
Sure.
Sent them a thank you note on Monday. Hey, great to meet you, whatever. And they never respond to that. But, you know, they're in my marketing now. They get a postcard from me, whatever. And like 90 days later, they sent me a note and said, hey, we've been looking for an agent. I remember they said this. They go, we've met 40 different people, and we just remember you the most, and we really liked you. And then to jog my memory, they said, we were the people that got locked out on that balcony with you that one day, which is really funny. And we, and I'm still in touch with them, and we laugh about it. That's how I met them. And I think if that would have happened and they would have liked me, which is very possible, and I think this happens to a lot of agents, like you put on a good show, you're at an open house, the people like you, you make a good first impression, but you don't follow up.
Yeah, you dropped the ball.
It doesn't go anywhere. And I didn't remember them specifically until I got that note. And of course, then I can check on their name, and it's in my database because I took good notes and so on and so forth. And I don't know, especially people that don't have an agent yet that are just starting the process. They just want to meet somebody that they like. Your job is really just to make a good first impression. And that, for some reason, because I'm sure I was nervous, but making jokes the whole time too, spoke to them, and they remembered me. So
I love that story. And probably a good place to wrap up. I mean, I think, you know, you in this conversation have really given our listeners a lot of great advice. And also, you know, we have a lot of people who are buyers, sellers, investors, renters who also listen to the show. And if somebody out there is looking to work with you or your team, do you mind sharing what's the best way that they should reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the ways. Byers Home Team on Instagram and Facebook, www.byershometeam.com. Byers is my last name, Byers. I mean, all the socials everywhere. I mean, just do Phil Byers Chicago, you'll find me.
Yeah,
But,
that's true.
I usually say Instagram or Facebook are the best ways.
Wonderful. Well, Phil, I want to thank you for being on the show. I know how busy you are, even in this, you know, challenging time that we're all in, and to take time to do this is really well appreciated by not only myself, but the listeners. I think this will go down as one of our more popular, maybe most popular episodes. So I appreciate all the advice and just sharing your story and your authenticity and your transparency is going to be really well valued by our listeners and our viewers. And also on behalf of the Phil and myself, we want to thank everyone for either watching or listening to this. We're going to ask everyone for one quick favor, actually two quick favors. One, please follow us on Facebook. So you can find us at facebook.com/Keeping It Real Pod, or just search for Keeping It Real Podcast. You'll find it on Facebook. Reason for that is we broadcast the behind the scenes, the making of these episodes, the videos in real time there, so you can watch them. You don't have to wait a couple of weeks for us to produce the episode. But every single day, we also find an article online designed specifically to help realtors grow their business, and we post that there to help you. So please do that. And the second thing, if everyone out there can think of just one real estate professional that could benefit from hearing from this interview with Phil, please pass that along. You can send them right over to our website, which is keepingitrealpod.com, or you can find us on anywhere podcasts are served: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, wherever, Pandora. We're everywhere. Just search for Keeping It Real Podcast. But Phil, thank you so much for being on the show. This was a lot of fun. And you were one of the first people when we first started doing this. I didn't mention this earlier, but that we put at the top of our list of some people that we wanted, and we finally were able to find time to
I appreciate
do it.
that so much. And I had a lot of fun, DJ. I really, really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks so much, and we wish you continued success. Not that you need my well wishes, because you're doing everything right, but thanks. And we'll see everyone on the next episode. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.